So this is probably an appropriate point to start looking at some of the individual issues through here and putting them through a bit of a filter of three particular things that I like to sit down with people and talk to them about when they're facing some issues or all of the issues, heaven forbid, that these people are facing in their particular business. But it's worthwhile considering your level of organisation in a business. I like this particular quote from Michael Gerber. It's, if you're thinking sloppy, your business will be sloppy. If you're disorganised, your business will be disorganised. If you're greedy, your employees will emulate that and they'll give you less and less of themselves and always ask for more in return. So a business, really what that's hitting at is the business owners and the business managers need to be the ones who are in there driving it. Because if you're buying a business or if you're running a business and you're leaving that up to somebody else, then your lack of involvement, your lack of supervision provides opportunities and then risks for things to move out of your control very, very quickly. And a number of businesses that come through our door on a day-to-day basis have those particular hallmarks. They have the hallmarks where somebody's got involved in the business because they thought it was a brilliant idea and they've left a well-paying job or they've taken their superannuation and they said, this is what I've always wanted to do, and they do that. They realise fairly early on that they don't want to invest 100 hours a week because they're retired or they're doing something else. They then decide, I'll put a manager in. And by doing that and removing themselves from the business at the very time when it needs their investment, they're setting themselves up for potential problems. So I think that quote is apt, and I think it's one that we need to keep in mind as we work through this, just to test, just have it as a test point to see where the thinking about our characters are. So let's have a little bit of a wants and needs analysis. I could sit here and talk to you all about things that you've no doubt heard. We can go through a SWOT analysis. We can look at strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats. And we can look at all those wonderful management accounting things. But people who get into business get into it for a reason. What do you want? What do you want to get out of this? Because it's not the business itself that has its own wants. It's a byproduct. It's a means to an end. So the directors obviously want something out of this. They want to generate, presumably, a successful business that will provide them with some element of passive income that they don't continue to have to work for week in, week out. But what does the business need? And here, I like to think of the business as the third person in this discussion. It is, in effect, a living entity. It needs to be fed, it needs to be cared for, it needs to be looked after, it needs to be tidied up every now and then, it needs to get a bit of a haircut, it needs to really have time spent on it as a child would, so that it grows and develops the hallmarks and the characteristics of a healthy, well-performing, well-respected entity in the community. So if you think about it in those terms, it's not that different from how you would raise a child, speaking as an inexperienced parent as I am. So there's a conflict here between what the directors want and what their business needs. So why don't we have a bit of a look at what this business needs. There's a bunch of things in there, and some of you have got the case study and some of you don't. But going from what we've read and what we thought about, throw me some things about what this business might need. What does it need?
Funding.
Yep. Funding. Needs dollars. Okay, what else does it need?
More certainty in contracts and
Mm-hmm.
control.
Yep. So certainty.
Focus.
Yep.
Communication.
Absolutely. Anything else?
Need the plan. And goals.
Let's talk about this last one for a moment. What sort of goals?
Targets.
What form should your goals have? What should they be?
Specific and measurable.
Ah, somebody's done some management accounting here. Okay, I'm going to get technical for a moment. They need to be specific. They need to be measurable. They need to be achievable. They need to be realistic. And this is the one that everybody forgets. What's the T? Time bound. They need to be time bound. Why?
Lose focus. Things change over time.
Absolutely. Circumstances change. If you don't set a time frame for these things, then how do you know when you get there? This example could be the road to nowhere. You could be doing the same thing every day. You know what a grave is? A grave is a rut with the ends filled in. All right? So you could be doing the same thing every day, and you get to the end and you think, wow, where's my legacy? What have I built? If you're here and you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to build something that's got longevity and it's got that test of time and it's something you want to leave for your kids, or you just want to build it for you, but you want it to be more than it is, then doing the same thing every day that's not working is probably not going to help you. So it needs to be all of these things. And goal setting and planning are the real keys that drive all of these, because if you have these goals, you'll be able to know what that is. At the moment, I think, even though there are some specific numbers in our case study about what dollars they need, they just need money. And they're concerned about where the next dollar is going to come from, particularly if their contracts fall over. And that leads to a lack of certainty. If we don't have any dollars, then what's the business going to be doing next week? Where's the tipping point? People will look at their balance sheet and they'll say, well, I've got more assets than I've got liabilities, so I'm okay. Not necessarily so. We want to talk about insolvency, we can talk about that a little bit later on, but there are some real pitfalls in there if you're just looking at pure balance sheet numbers. And this lack of certainty and this lack of dollars leads to this lack of focus. And you only get that focus by having these things in place. And once you've lost focus and you don't have any of that and any of that, then all of a sudden the communication starts to fall away. You stop talking to the very people that you need to talk to. Now, laying over the top of all of this and the different professionals that you'll hear from in the coming weeks and in the coming presentations, you'll start to think, perhaps, this sounds very expensive. There's an insolvency practitioner standing here that's going to charge me $400 an hour to go and do something for them, perhaps. There's going to be a lawyer who's going to be about the same. There's going to be an accountant who's going to be a couple of $100 an hour. All of this starts to rack up. My question then to you becomes, what's the downside risk? In any investment proposal, evaluate the downside risk first. What's the downside risk of not doing that? And how much time and money can you spend trying to resolve these things without the plan and the goals that those professionals will enable you to set down?